Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right. Kind of just want to ramble about basketball at random. Absolute random. Don't even know what I'm going to say. Sometimes good stuff comes out when I do that. So let's see what happens. All right. Dennis Schroeder kicked butt yesterday, and I'm really hoping that he continues to stay on the trajectory he's on because he's revamping his career right before our very eyes, man. A whole lot of good stuff going on in LA with my squad, the Lakers. Thomas Bryant, um, Russell Westbrook, and Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves. Those guys are really starting to step into their own. Winyan, Gabriel. We're starting to see a synergy with our team. And what I'm starting to think about when I look at us is as we continue to assess the fluidity of what our outlook is in terms of our team, we're starting to see players that we want to see continue to be on our squad, and their values are starting to fluctuate in different directions. A guy like Thomas Bryant is probably twice as valuable as he was just 10 days ago because of how he's been playing as of late. And the thing about Thomas Bryant is his health. As long as he's healthy, we can get this type of energy out of him. He's a heck of a player, but he has had some injury issues in the past, so we just don't want to over lean on him, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're not assessing the player properly in any way. So as he goes forward and continues to score for us, rebound for us, and just plays monster ball, I'm just intent on paying attention to him, and hopefully the coach can continue to use him the same way, and we can see how far up his elevator goes. Because I'm starting to really be excited about what he can do from a night-to-night basis, scoring and rebounding, which is the basis of what you want a star player to do. So if he continues to rebound at the clip that he's rebounding, um, he's scary, man. He's scary. And when you talk about bringing Anthony Davis back to that, if he's developing into what it is, it looks like he's developing into, now you have to assess us differently. Now it's like, all right, well, you got TB on a discount. If he's playing at this level, that's a super discount. You know what I mean? That's like, okay, now we have some value. Now we can see where there's somewhere we can maneuver a little bit. I just want our coach to continue to lean in on these players that are playing well. Um, Winyan Gabriel is somebody I still think is a better player than we think he is. Uh, Judging by how much good happens when he's on the floor, judging by the fact that he's able to hit 3-point shots, I just think he's better than we're showing. Even now, I still think there should be a little more emphasis placed on just how well he's playing. And if you lean on him like we're leaning on Thomas Bryant, um, in the way that we are, if we could just give him a little more minutes and continue to play him as if he's a starter with Thomas Bryant, I don't think too many lineups are going to have a whole lot of success against us. Now, what we're going to have to understand is we're catching teams off guard. They still think of us as somewhat of a scrub team. I don't think that's going to be the case tomorrow going into Atlanta. They know we're playing well. They know we've played well on the road. So obviously at home, they expect us to be sharp. So I'm thinking teams are going to look at us as a team that they can't take nights off against. I think most teams probably would have learned the lesson the Miami Heat just showed them. So that's something I'm paying attention to. Um, so yeah, it's a lot of room to be optimistic about the others on this team as it pertains to us finally finding some synergy and some rotations that can make them look their best. Um, Juan Toscano Anderson is someone we've been using a lot. And my thing with Juan has been that he doesn't look um, too good on the offensive end to me. A lot of mechanical issues. But that's some of the same stuff I said about Damian Jones. I think that comes from not having as much um, time on the floor, not as many reps. I think if he would have been healthy throughout the season, because you remember he had that pretty bad ankle roll that kept him out for a couple weeks, we would have seen him just overall be a sharper player. He's still trying to work his way back into the equation. And judging from what I've seen, he can really help us, but he can also really hurt us with his offensive deficiencies, just like Patrick Beverly was doing early in the season. So that's really my gripe with um, JTA. I like what he's done. It pertains to what he does on the defensive side of the ball, but I just think that if his 3-point shot isn't falling, we've seen some very serious deficiencies on the offensive end that require a great deal of coaching before I feel like I have the type of confidence necessary to play him in certain situations that I saw him on the floor in these last couple games. Now, it doesn't mean that he wasn't playing well with some of those minutes, especially 2 games ago when he really had a fantastic plus minus and was doing all kinds of stuff on both sides, including hitting threes. But like I said, there's some deficiencies down there that are just going to have to come with him getting reps. He didn't get a lot of playing time at Golden State either. So I think that's probably more so the issue. So, I'm trying to remain patient, not make some of the same mistakes I made earlier in the season when I was down on everybody, um, knowing that guys have to work their way back from injury, knowing that guys can help us when they're at their best. So JTA needs more playing time, not less. And my frustration with him is kind of misplaced over the last couple of days, talking about him in the way that I did, listening to it the way that I was. It was like I'm losing sight of the fact that guys can't get better if they don't play. You know what I mean? But for me, it's just like when you play them, it's just what it's about. What lineups are you putting them in, and when are they on the floor, and are they helping us while they out there? And if not, then of course we gotta continue to pull guys off the floor that are hurting us. And so I think our coach is actually pretty good at that. He does a pretty good job of getting away from guys that struggle, but sometimes he forgets to put guys back on the floor that are playing well. So that's more so my gripe in situations such as these. But all in all, we're seeing some great stuff from guys that we hadn't seen great stuff from as of late, and I'm encouraged. Even Kendrick Nunn had a pretty good game yesterday, even though he saw him have a little bit of issues down there early on. Later on in the game, you could see he had come back and really, really bounced back, rebound the ball, shot the ball pretty well, and contributed some very, very key points in that Miami win. So I'm telling you, I don't know how Bron's feeling. Obviously, we're going to want him to play in the Atlanta game if he's 100%. But, I also think this was kind of a blessing in disguise having him not play this game for a multitude of reasons. One, to rest him, since we're coming off that long road trip. A couple extra days rest is pretty good for him before our squad. This was a very specific type of scenario where the team we're kind of going up against is not only playing well, but match up well with who we would have on the floor without Bron. The TB Bam Adebayo matchup. Having Russell Westbrook going up against Jimmy in the way that he was, and how we had that set up. The way Schroeder was able to play and kind of offset what was going on with guys like Tyler Hero. It was almost like the matchups were set for the guys that we needed to have matchups that they could kind of be pushed up against guys that are considered better than them, been in a rhythm to where they've been playing well enough on the road to have seen some success, and remove LeBron James so they can kind of be keyed in to kind of do some of those things that they need to do to get buckets and showcase their offensive talent. Because at the end of the day, LeBron James gets so many easy buckets. We're not really required to lean on guys' talent to get scoring as much as we would be if you weren't out there. So in a game like this, normally the team you're going against ain't no good. They're probably moving some of their starters. It's a situation where you just don't have a chance that night because they're playing so well against your lesser guys. That wasn't necessarily the case. We were able to get our guys on the floor to do what we needed them to do, and Miami was playing kind of to the level of the opponent in the way they needed to, while still getting enough from the guys that had been playing well on their team to make us feel good that we beat a good team, if that makes any sense. Bam, who had been balling all week, played well. Jimmy, who had been balling all week, played well. That kind of thing. So it's like, we know we didn't beat some slouch. We know we beat a team that's been on a winning streak. We know we beat a team that had been winning on the road. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's just an excellent win for our team, and I don't know if you could simulate all of those circumstances to come together any better than they did, especially for a guy like Dennis Schroeder and Thomas Bryant and Russell Westbrook, who were playing for contracts, who were playing for new situations. This was a heaven sent in every way, shape, and form. So that's something that really stood out for me. I just like how that just kind of rounded into form for all those guys. No matter what happens with this season, they can circle that game and kind of take it back to the negotiation table for themselves. So I think that's kind of a big deal. So yeah, that's something I'm looking at. Injuries, they're really a thing. Anthony Davis, all the talk about him coming back, I'm of the mindset that he should just wait until he's in a really, really unique physical conditioning level, just like he was when he came in after the back spasms had dissipated, and when he was able to kind of jump into that 50-point Anthony Davis version. I think he should come back in that type of shape. And I know that the schedule does not allow us for him to stay away that long. And I know this injury probably won't allow him to train to even get to that level, which is kind of why I'm iffy about him coming back playing on this injury, even as it is. Obviously, if circumstances were different, you could just make certain decisions that would be better for him in the long term. I, for one, if I'm going to invest in him long term, kind of want to think that way anyway. Um, it's just a very impossible situation to try to gauge, because if Anthony Davis was on my franchise, and say I had franchise of BDF's NBA team, and Anthony Davis was my guy, he shut down for the season, y'all. We're not doing this. He's going to have the procedure that fixed that foot. Um, right? He probably already had the procedure if I was running the team. The procedure was done. He's out for the season. And then we proceed to let him heal from that, and then start his conditioning ramp back up, and then get him back on, whatever the regimen was he was on the off season, and continue on that pace. That's the only way to play it with a guy like this. Because as long as he's continuing to try to rush back from injuries and not let injuries fully heal, or come back when he's only 100% as opposed to coming back as a beast, then he'll never actually get in the shape that allows him to, really be who he needs to be. And that's the key to it all. I felt the same way about Ben Simmons, even though he's handling it very well and he's coming back slowly. I still kind of felt like guys like that need to come back as monsters. Like, you got to come back having been in the gym for like a year, in my opinion, to really hit back out there and just get back to what it is that you were doing at the level that you were. Some of the best players in the league, their conditioning level is not just one off season. These dudes been working. A guy like Giannis been working out for 9 off seasons, 10 off seasons straight. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're not coming in that shape and you plan on going head to head with them dudes every night, at the level that AD is expected to play, you're not gonna have the type of success that you want to have long term or sustainably. And that's been the problem with him. So for me, it's like, everything needs to be just reset. We need to just do things correctly, and we need to do things methodically and slowly, in my opinion, as it pertains to a guy like Anthony Davis. When he means so much, can do so much, but is so fragile. And so that's what it's about. And bringing him back at 100% to save the season. And what does he do? Go right back down with another injury that's going to take twice as long for him to come back from. It's just, I know better. Just because the pain's gone away, he's got a very serious situation he's dealing with. It ain't just about pain, it's about structure. And so if they know he needs a procedure and they're just kind of tiptoeing around it because of what's the best for the team, I just don't think that's what's best for Anthony Davis. I really don't. And so I leave it at that. I don't know. I mean, you got to weigh it against how long he even wants to play in the league. When you consider if he's as fragile as we look at him to be at this point, it's like, if he can't even jump in the air and bump knees with somebody without being out for several weeks, he probably is not going to have a very long career to begin with. And if that's the case, here we go again with the Lakers having to assess him from that standpoint. And that's very difficult, because that means you're not going to be able to trade him for much if everybody thinks him that way. You're not going to get as much from him as you think you should be able to, that is. So, this is the path we're on. I'm of the mindset, over the last 24 hours, I've just been on some, just looking at things from a contractual standpoint. Fulfilling contracts just seem like the easiest thing to do in this market for a lot of guys, man. You never want to see a guy walk, so that's not what's necessarily best from a team standpoint. But if I'm a guy like Anthony Davis, I just want to fulfill my contract. If I'm LeBron James, I just want to see my contract through. I don't know why I've been thinking that this way. Just for the last couple of days, when you think of just all the things that have been going on and how locked up the NBA has been, to where you've only seen like one trade in the whole offseason. Basically, they had one today, as a matter of fact. Noah Vonleh got traded from the Boston Celtics to the San Antonio Spurs for, I think, cash considerations. But that's the type of move that can open up the market. Remember last time we said that in the summertime, it was a small move where a center signed with the Houston Rockets. I think it was a homie with the 3 names. He used to play for Willie Cauley-Stein. Used to play for the Kings. He signed with the Rockets earlier in the season. I don't even know if he's there now, but that was the move that was ever so slight that opened up the market. Showed, got a couple extra trades, even Donovan Mitchell trade after that. So, that could be what it is. All it takes is one move to set the prices, as we've talked about many times. So look for trades to start coming down the pipeline over the next, say, probably 10 days, 10 to 2 weeks. I think you start seeing another trade or two, maybe something big coming. Cause, yeah. So that's something I'm looking at. But it's just an interesting time in the NBA for everybody. I think teams are kind of looking around, trying to figure out who wants to move first. Obviously, today the Celtics made that small move. They created a roster spot. I think a lot of people think they're going to try to make another move, try to bring somebody in that can really help their team. So maybe they'll be involved in something. I don't know. Now, for me, I want to kind of zero back on something that matters to my squad, the Lakers, because Russell Westbrook is a player that we're looking at now and trying to figure out what would make sense in regards to him. And given the fact that he's been playing as well as he has, probably well on his way to a Sixth Man of the Year, he's gonna ask for some real money. He is, especially if he's able to capture that. Now the question is, what role is he willing to take going forward? Because I know he doesn't like coming off the bench. He doesn't. I think the concern is, will he revert back to the Russell Westbrook from last year? And if that's the case, he'll never be a starter anywhere. But the player that he's playing as right now is a starter in this league. I think the misconception about Russell Westbrook and the confusion that I think I'm hearing, I was listening to Kaminsky brothers, and they brought in a guest this morning, and they were kind of talking about Russell Westbrook, and they prefer him not to be on this team going forward, for reasons such as what we're talking about. But I think for me, I'm looking at it a little differently as it pertains to Russell, because the Lakers don't have a whole lot of talent to begin with as a team. We only have, what we have. And although we're very excited about how guys are going, letting a guy like Russell Westbrook just walk away doesn't necessarily speak to the truth about what it is that you have when doing so. And so as I look at him, I say the truth about Russell Westbrook is this. He struggled last year mightily, and I think a lot of that stuff had to do with other things other than him declining in any way. I think he was going through something off the court, and I think it was bleeding onto the court, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of that has subsided, and I think he's back to himself in a way, and I think he's settled into being in Los Angeles and being on this team. However, some of the issues that we had last year probably carried over, given the fact that not only was his issues on the court tough on him, but also tough on some of the players. So the chemistry has kind of been kind of iffy. Plus, when you consider we're bringing in guys like Patrick Beverley, you're going to have some chemistry overcomings that would be required. But he's handled all of them very well, and I think that's key to what it is you expect from him going forward. I look at Russell Westbrook when people say, is he going to be able to accept the role going forward of coming off of the bench? I think the most difficult part for him to do that has already passed. I think the struggle for him to come to terms with that is exactly what we saw last year. I think the struggle with him having to come to terms with that is exactly what we saw at the beginning of this season. And I think he's working through that right now. And by the time he gets to a point where the negotiations are being set, I think if the team puts the right amount of money on the table with him, if they can convince him to be in a situation that makes sense to him, he'll do it. And I think he's already proven that. What I also think is Russell Westbrook at a fair price is still an asset for your basketball club. The reason why he's not starting for our basketball club is because we have LeBron James in the starting lineup. LeBron James and Russell Westbrook are starting to be able to play well together. But the initial issues was that we could not find synergy because of the issues that they have naturally as basketball players together, and the fact that they're so important on the basketball floor that we couldn't afford to not have them in lineups together for too long. So the idea was to start Bron, pull Westbrook to the bench, and then allow them to try to work separately in the ways that they're able to. That is the only reason why Russell Westbrook is coming off of the bench. And I think that's gotten lost in the midst of all of this because of his struggles. I think people are confused that he's earned the right to be a bench player across the league. No, he's not. It's absolutely a fallacy. What has happened is he was struggling with the starting lineup unit that we had last year because we were running a whole system without any center. And if you've watched Russell Westbrook's entire career, he plays best when the center's on the floor. If you don't have a center on the floor, you got problems. Plus, we didn't have anybody worth a damn playing down there next to him outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I mean, the roster was awful. So it was incumbent upon him to do certain things that he's not very good at, like creating for himself and making plays when there's no rim protection and no big on the floor. I tell you, that is a huge part of it. We weren't getting in transition very much. He was asked to kind of create and finish and to do things off the dribble. It was a nightmare. So he won't be in a situation like that. If a team is asking him to come to their team, that will not be the dynamic. Now, I concur with the idea that if a team has a young point guard on their squad, it probably makes sense to not have him start. Obviously, if he goes to a team like Atlanta or Charlotte, you don't expect him to, he's not starting over LaMelo or Trey or nothing like that. But there are circumstances in the league where Russell Westbrook can immediately go there, and there should be no logical reason why he isn't the starter. Absolutely no logical reason, especially if the team is full of shooters and defensive players and bigs. Like if you got a team that has a bunch of elite shooting, Russell Westbrook's definitely your starter. Especially since he's shown so much upside on the defensive side of the ball since he's become a Laker. I think he's played better defense with us than he's played anywhere else. So when I assess Russell Westbrook, I look at him and I say, as long as he doesn't revert back to the guy who didn't have any confidence last year, but the guy who continued to be aggressive in spite of it, then he can be somebody that people trust to have on the basketball floor. But if he's out there playing the way that he played in those games, and that's up to him, then not only is he not a starter, but he ain't even playable. You don't want him off your bench either. So that's really the thing about Russell Westbrook, and I think that's why his negotiation situations have been very tricky. Because even though he's played phenomenally for so long, and we have legitimate explanations for why he looked poor down there, at the end of the day, he looked especially poor down there, and some of that stuff was not excusable, and a lot of that stuff was blasted all over television for many, many days in a row on Undisputed, and others as well. So I think that can kind of hurt him as well. At the end of the day, I don't know that there are going to be a lot of teams that want to take a chance on him at the price that he's going to want to be paid at, especially if he does, in fact, want to demand to start. But if he's open-minded about coming off the bench and is willing to negotiate a fair price, I think he will be an asset to the team that chooses him. As far as my Lakers are concerned, it's a tricky situation for me because it depends on where we're headed. That's what it really comes down to for me. You know, I don't quite know where the Lakers want to go in regards to their franchise, and I've had, I've been of the mindset that blowing it up is the best thing for us, and I also understand that there are other avenues we could take that we feel really good about, including keeping this thing together and keeping pushing forward. So, at this point, I'm at peace. I don't really want to see my team mortgage the 2 picks for something that I wouldn't agree with. But if we can make a deal to make the team better, I'm a happy player. I'm a happy person, rather, in regards to this team. Blowing it up could be something we do. Blowing it up could be something we don't do. I could see a scenario where the Lakers decide not to blow it up, and then next season try to renegotiate, bringing back most of these players on better deals, and then from there bringing them more help, and then just going forward with that. I can totally see a scenario where the Lakers do that. In fact, that might be the safest way to go, especially since TB is starting to get better. Austin Reeves is starting to get better. You're starting to see some upside with Troy Brown. You know, you see that where Max Christie can get better. Like you can see yourself bringing back this entire unit next year without Russell being on a $47 million contract, without Patrick Beverly being there for $14 million. And you take that money and you just bring this unit what it needs, on top of Dennis Schroeder on a contract that's affordable, on top of Westbrook, who's going to be returning on an affordable contract. Then you see a fuller team. You just add more talent to what this is. So picture what we have right now, and then like add Miles Bridges to it, or add a Kyrie Irving type talent to it. You understand what I'm saying? That's what you would do, and then all of a sudden, this is a very good team. And you didn't really move too many pieces. You just brought something to it based on the discount that the same piece is going to be at. So that seems like a more safe plan the more I've been thinking about the Lakers situation. Because the thing about it is this. If we trade Anthony Davis and trade LeBron James for a bunch of picks, and then those picks don't manifest into anything, and LeBron James continues to play to these 45 and wins championships with another team, it's a nightmare. It's a disaster. And that's a very decent possibility that happens. You trade Anthony Davis, and he does ascend back into a player who's scoring 50 and 60 points a night, and who you draft doesn't do that, nightmare. And you keep Rob Pelinka or whatever, and he continues to put together these bullhead rosters that don't do nothing. And Bron ain't here to get easy buckets, and Anthony Davis is somewhere else still playing basketball at a high level. Listen, that's not gonna make Jeannie happy, man. And while that's something I probably would do, just because I'm up for blowing it up, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not gonna be very unhappy if it goes that path. So for me, it's like, all right, if I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, the biggest problem the Lakers have is Russell Westbrook at 47 and Patrick Beverly at whatever he's at, 14. You know how many players that is? That's a lot of players. And the players that we like on our team are on very, very, very cheap contracts. A guy like Thomas Bryant's making like $1 million. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can bring him something that complements him on top of Anthony Davis, on top of LeBron James, on top of everything we already got. And you got to ask yourself, who do you bring in, and what do you move to the side, and how much better does that actually make you? You know what I mean? And the answer is a lot better without removing anything. You see what I'm saying? A lot better without removing anything. So that's what comes to mind. I'm like, shoot, because all the different things I want to do with this team, I'm trying to bring young talent to the team in my mind. So I want some of the best young talent there is. But there's no guarantee the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be able to acquire the right picks based on the fact that Anthony Davis's value is so low. So I don't know that I can trade him for anything that's going to be even close to as good as him, even if he's only playing 40 games a season. But, if Russell Westbrook's on the team at like $15 or $10 million, then I got the insurance wrapped up in the rest of that money in the form of other players. Now I got my Miles Turner, you see what I'm saying, on top of Thomas Bryant. So it ain't no Damian Jones. It ain't no JTA. Now my third string guy is Wenyen Gabriel. See how much better my team is? I ain't got to remove nobody. I just got to get those guys off the books at those prices, but retain them on the team for the same synergy. And see, that's the key to it. Because it's like the problem the Lakers are having is we keep bringing back different teams over and over and over again. We can't never seem to get no continuity. What I'm finding, though, is we're starting to find that continuity here. What does the team need? Help. Not necessarily addition by subtraction, because the only players we really complain about is about 2 or 3 players, if you really think about it. Who we really complaining about? Damian Jones, Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverley. Every single body else on the team we literally love. If you really break it down, most Laker fans love everybody else. And we might complain a little bit about, Troy Brown not hitting shots here and there. But I mean, like, that's really it. Everybody else on the team we're happy to see, and they really do help us if they're rotated properly. Even the little guys. It just comes down to what price are they paying at, and do we have enough? When AD and Bron goes down, the answer is no. And where the hell is the rest of that money? And those 2 contracts we already mentioned. It's all in Russell Westbrook. It's in his pockets. He got all them players in his pocket. So it's one of those situations where it's like, if we can just get half of that money out of Russell's pockets and put it into the hands of other players, voila. We damn near got a championship team if everybody's playing the way they're playing right now. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is our biggest problem? We're too reliant upon Anthony Davis. If we can't win the champ, we can't win nothing. We can't even get to the first round if Anthony Davis ain't down there. Well, that don't have to be the case if you remove all of that from Russell Westbrook and turn it into a bunch of insurance for Anthony Davis. So that's along the lines of what I think the Lakers' safest bet is to try to do that. That's the safest bet. Safest thing you can do. And then that way you got a team that LeBron James can come back and say, this is the team I ran with last year. We know one another. We're on a string. My coach knows each other. We done been through the wars of the last 2 years. We've been through it all. Let me finish my career with a team with some synergy and some flexibility. We ain't got our picks, but who needs picks when your timeline is win now anyway? You need flexibility, and you need to be able to find young players in the second round and be able to have assets that are tradable. So what do we have? Assets that are going to start being tradable as we continue to play them properly. And so that's what it is, man. Our situation is improving so long as we just keep good lineups on the floor and stay healthy. Because as long as guys look like trash, we can't trade them. But if they look good, we're happy. Everybody looks, it just falls into place, obviously. So that's what it's about, man. That is exactly what it's about. I think Russell Westbrook's gotten a bad rap, and I think people have long gotten confused about what they're looking at. When they see him coming off the bench, they see him struggling. It's like, do understand that he's a 6th man of the year. Right now, if the season ends, he's the undisputed 6th man of the year. That should automatically tell you he's good enough to start. If the MVPs and the greatest triple-double player in the history of the world moniker didn't do that for you already. So yeah, man, I just think that it's one of those situations where it's like, as I've said, as I speak in circles, if Russell's playing like trash, I want him gone. I don't want him nowhere near my team. When he's playing bad, you've heard what I had to say. Everybody who follows me know how extreme it got for me. I thought he didn't even want to win. I was looking at this dude like he didn't want to compete. That was my thing. I was like, this dude don't want to win. He wants us to lose. He was more concerned about us. treating him a certain way than he was about winning at one point. It's God's honest truth. And he's turned that upside down. He's done everything I wanted him to do to make me feel better about that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's exactly what that is he did that, and then I wanted him to do some things to make up for that. He's done all of those things. So this is what we are. That's exactly what we are. The question is can we find enough talent to make this team decent enough this year? The answer is no, and it is because of his contract. And so that was the case no matter what anyway. Simply put. So that's what it is, man. That is all there is. But I'm super excited about what I'm seeing based on just Thomas Bryant. Honestly, how well he's playing. That is more than enough for me. Thomas Bryant at 1 point whatever $1 million playing at 19 and it's giving us 19 and 15 and all kinds of weird numbers. It's all-star basically numbers. That's one of the best discounts in the NBA right now, Joe. It really is. It's one of the best discounts in the league. Do you trade it? That's one of those questions. I mean, I'm not shaking my head like, yes, that's not what I'm doing. That's what I'm telling you is this is how you need to be thinking. You got a question. Does it make sense to trade a guy like that when he's playing that well? Can you get a first-round pick? You know what I'm saying? If he keeps doing this all the way into the trade deadline, can you trade Thomas Bryant for a first-round pick? And if you can, is that something you would want to do? Because that's how you trade first-round pick. That's how you actually do it, though. If you really want to know the truth. You get a guy like this playing like that, and then you get somebody excited enough about bringing him there for that amount. That's how you do it. Because you got to think, people look at contracts like Zach LaVine's as the contracts to want. But nah, that thing is expensive as hell. You don't want no, he's not. If Zach LaVine is giving you 70 points like Donovan Mitchell, then you understand that contract is all right, that's what you're getting. But you want to find a guy who can do the most for the less. So if I'm going to give up my first round pick, it ain't going to be for no contract like Zach LaVine's. I'm going to want to find the best version of Thomas Bryant's activities. Give me the dude that's doing that for $1 million, fam. That's worth the first round pick, homie. So I think people have been looking at this thing all wrong. But I think they're going to start looking at it right very soon. And, I'm not saying that's going to cost you. It's probably going to cost you more than Thomas Bryant playing at this level. But I'm just saying these are the type of things you need to be thinking about. So that's what it is, man. Los Angeles Lakers. Excited about my squad. Excited about overall just what we can do for our asset class if guys keep playing well. So I didn't think I was going to turn this into a Lakers talk, but I didn't say much of anything about anybody else. And quite frankly, who cares about anybody else, man? It's all about our team. We know that. I was thinking about something today that it's really interesting to me. They ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But because the Lakers have so many fans, automatically we were voting players in. We saw Russell Westbrook ahead of Devin Booker, Austin Reeves ahead of Darius Garland. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the early first ballot stuff. And one of the things I was looking at is Jason Tatum's like number 4 in the Eastern Conference, which I thought was really interesting because he's behind some guys that I think are bigger stars than him, but he is arguably playing better than all 3 of them, which is Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kevin Durant. He's in the mix, but I don't think he's a bigger star than those guys necessarily, and I think it's a popularity contest that we're talking about. But a concept came to mind as I was sitting there looking at this. I'm like, yo, this is a real thing here. Because the Lakers are so popular, right? Could it not stand to reason that the Boston Celtics could hurt just by the way of them being our rivals and us being like the overwhelming fan favorite? Could they not be hurt by that, yo? I never really even thought about it, and I don't think the rivalry is as prevalent as it once was, so I don't think it really impacts the numbers as much as it could. But like just off of the sheer notion that there are so many Laker fans and that the understanding is that the Lakers' natural thing is to hate the Celtics, wouldn't the Lakers' presence just naturally take away from the Celtics' overall international fan base? Just off of the sheer fact that the Lakers have like half of the NBA's fans. So it was just something that hit me when I was looking at Jason Tatum's voting. I'm like, yo, look at all these Lakers whose values inflated. You look at all these Celtics whose values deflated. And I'm like, I wonder if there's something to that. Anyway, I guess I'll leave the video at that, man. Go Lakers. We hate the Celtics. BDL 44. Peace.